Hi there, thanks for joining me again. Or maybe this is your first time, in which case I hope you'll enjoy this video. I'm going to be painting a flower garden. I love flowers, and although this is the middle of winter at the moment, you may be watching this in the middle of summer, but right now I'm painting this in the middle of winter, and painting flowers always cheers me up. So what have I done to start off with? Well, I've started to paint in the sky, and now I'm putting in some trees really in the background. The sky is made up of titanium white and mixtures of cerulean blue and cobalt blue. I've done it very quickly and I've left lots of marks using my palette knife, and there's a reason for this that I'll explain later. So I'm working fairly quickly just to lay in some greens and also the sky, just to get into the mood of the painting. I always find when I start a painting, I just have to sort of put paint down just to get going. The greens I've made up with mixtures of lemon yellow, cobalt blue and cerulean blue. The mixture of lemon yellow and cerulean blue gives you a really, really intense, vibrant citrine green, which is almost a little bit too much. So I use a tiny, tiny bit of raw umber to just take that back. Raw umber can be absolutely wonderful. It's a bit of a lifesaver on your palette. Lots of people complain about brown because their paintings turn out muddy, and that's because you mix too many colours together, because that's essentially what brown is. But if you use it sparingly with colours that are far too saturated, it just turns them into these absolutely gorgeous, beautiful colours. And if you use it across your palette, mixing certain colours with a tiny, tiny bit, not a lot, it unifies them and it makes them look beautiful together. Now, as you can see, I'm working all across the canvas. I'm going back into the sky to add a bit more darker blue to give it a bit more life. But I'm not working top to bottom, I'm not working left to right or anything like that. I'm really working across the canvas, and I like working like this because it unifies your work. So I'm really working on the greens in this painting at the moment. I'm trying to get dark greens in and lighter greens that are nice greens. I find you have to mix your greens using various blues and yellows. And if you'd like to find out my methods of mixing beautiful greens, do say green in the comments and I will put together a video for you. Now, as you can see, I am working all across the canvas, and there are big areas where there is no paint, and that's really where the flowers are going to be. I'm really getting into this now. I'm still using my palette knife. Whoops, my canvas has just fallen off the wall. I hook the canvas onto a couple of screws screwed into a batten on the wall. Now here, as you can see, I'm just kind of painting in the edges with my finger. The reason for that is that canvases have a rounded edge, and very often when you're painting with a palette knife, you don't really get the paint right to the edge, and then that can really ruin the final painting. So as I'm going along, I make sure that the paint covers around the curved edge. Now I'm putting in some more colour, the flowers. They're not any particular flowers, they are the sense of a flower garden. I've mixed a little bit of crimson with some cobalt blue and a little bit of raw umber and titanium white. And now I'm putting in a darker mix, and that is actually pretty much saturated quinacridone magenta. That's a bluer sort of magenta, whereas the pink, the subtle pink that I've made with the crimson and the cobalt blue is a really pretty pink, I think. The lines in the dark purple I've made with another mix using cobalt blue, crimson and a touch of raw umber, and also the tiniest little bit of black, because I want the darkness. And now what I'm doing is I've made that mix lighter, I've added more blue. So they're like delphiniums. I mean, there's no detail to them because I don't want detail, but it's just to get the sense of a vertical flower and maybe a flower like a rose and smaller flowers. In the distance here, I'm just touching in a few little marks that could be a clematis, also known as clematis, growing through a tree. So my colour palette is really quite limited, and I keep my colour palette like that because it's important for me not to get into a complete mess. Now I've changed my tool to this rather wonderful kitchen tool, which is actually a kitchen spatula. And I love it. It is so easy to use. You get lots of different marks using it. You can use different sides. You can use the pointy bit, or you can use the soft edge bit. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful. Art shops should be selling these. I don't know why they don't. So now I'm introducing Indian yellow, much underrated. I've put a little bit of white, mixed a little bit of white in it, just to take that edge off, because it can be quite bright, but it's just a gorgeous colour to introduce into your paintings. The style of this painting is very impressionistic. It's using colour essentially to describe a scene. And this in my head is like one of the many gardens that I've photographed for magazines over the years. Here's my palette at this stage. I know it looks a bit messy, but there is method to my madness. These are all the colours that I've used, and I've only used these two tools. So I'm continuing now to apply paint to cover the whole canvas. There's lots of little spaces, but all I'm doing is picking a colour from my palette and then working across the canvas. And this allows you to get a sort of a rhythm that you get when you find a flower garden. A beautifully designed flower garden has wonderful rhythm where colours don't just appear in one block, they appear in blocks across the border. And that's what I'm trying to do with this canvas. The paint on the canvas is still very wet. I'm applying it quite thickly, and I am working quickly. And the reason for this is that I want to be able to use the wet paint to move it around on the canvas. You have to be careful with this because you can make a real mess, and then it just becomes a muddy brown. But if you're careful about it, it just gives you some very, very wonderful and unexpected mixes of paint. At this point in the painting, I am thoroughly enjoying myself. It's playing with paint and coming up with some lovely marks, some lovely mixtures of colours, quite a dreamy, romantic painting, I think. I've got a space in the middle of this painting which I haven't actually done anything with. A part of the reason for it is that it is right in the centre of the painting, and you don't ever want to put something very obvious in the centre of the painting. I mean, sometimes it happens and it's for a particular reason, but if you have a painting like this and something very obvious is in the centre, your eye will just be drawn to that and you'll miss all the beauty around it. So I've left that space deliberately to see what will happen, what subject should go in that place in the dead center of the painting. And I think it's probably something quite subtle, quite uneventful. Let's see. So to me, that kind of looks like a path. So I'm going to draw in a path. I draw it in sort of quite a bright white actually at the beginning, which really doesn't work. And I'm going to dull that down and I'm going to give it more of an edge. So I'm going to draw in or paint in some more greenery around it to make it less obvious. I've edited out most of the parts of the video where I'm mixing colours, which is what I'm doing right now. You can see me just sort of standing there. I'm actually mixing colours. I think I probably spend as much time mixing colours as I do painting. Mixing is a really important part of the artistic process. And I absolutely love doing it. So if you find mixing colours difficult, do subscribe. I'm going to be posting some videos to explain the beauty of mixing colours. So instead of you finding it difficult, you'll positively dive into it. So I'm now just painting some shadows onto the path, as you can see. They're very rough. I will probably leave this painting and work out if that was the right thing to do there. It may look like a path, it may not look like a path, who knows? But this is a very loose painting. It's very gestural. And as I said earlier, it's a very impressionistic style of a garden. I'm now really just doing some finishing touches. I'm putting a little bit more the sense of trees further away, so they're much lighter. I'm using very, very light marks and just a little bit of paint. It's almost like there's a breeze on this summer's day and the trees are just waving in the breeze. And to make the trees a little bit more interesting, I'm now just drawing into them. So I take the edge of the spatula and I draw marks like branches really, but no real detail, not worrying too much about them, just to give the sense of branches. And because the paint's wet, you can see the white of the gesso underneath. I'm using the wrong end of my spatula now as a marker. Now I've got a white patch here, which is not right. So I'm applying some Indian yellow into that, and that's made quite a lovely mark. These are really finishing off things. I heard this description of painting, and I can't attribute it to anyone. I wish I could, but it's start like a builder and finish like a jeweler. So you just start and you're rough and you put paint down and see what happens and see what you see coming out of the painting. And then as you see and feel your way through the painting and things start to make sense, then you can finish it more carefully, because at this point it's about adding the finishing touches. So I've got to a point where I'd like to stop. And here are some close-ups you can see of the marks that I've made. Those are the branches that I did right at the last bit. Those are the petals of something like a clematis. Those are the delphiniums and some unnamed yellow plants. Maybe some roses. You do get a sense of petals, you get a sense of looseness, you definitely get a sense of summer. Summer in the garden, the final painting. I loved painting this and sharing it with you, and if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, it does help. And if you're interested, I have a book called How to Paint Flowers Expressively. Bye for now.